Rumors of Sheila Carter's death in the wake of the bloody showdown with Luna Nozawa swept through Los Angeles like wildfire, igniting hushed conversations in glossy salons, gossip-fueled headlines on every website, and wild speculation on every late-night talk show. One whispered that Sheila's body had been identified in the chaos of the shooting. Another claimed her funeral had already taken place in secret, attended only by her closest allies. Yet for Deacon Sharp, Sheila's husband, the man whose life had been bound to hers in a tumult of passion, betrayal, and redemption, those rumors rang hollow. He refused to believe that the woman who had shot Luna in a desperate bid to save her daughter had perished in that violent storm. Deep down, he knew Sheila's survival instinct all too well. Death would never be the end for her. Haunted by the thought of her death, he resolved to unmask the truth, to sift through lies and half-truths until he found the trail she could not hide. His investigation began with a solitary drive through the city's darker outskirts, where neon signs gave way to dimly lit industrial parks. He traipsed door to door, mortuaries, hospitals, medical examiners, each time meeting polite denials or averted gazes. When no official record of Sheila's demise could be found, Deacon's suspicion ripened into certainty. She had faked her death. A chance tip from a bartender who claimed to have spotted a woman matching Sheila's description in a rundown bar on the edge of Chinatown sent him to a block of shuttered warehouses. There, he slipped past a chain-link fence, his heart pounding as he pressed his back against cold metal siding and listened for any sign of life. From within one cavernous building came the muted hum of machinery and the low murmur of voices. He picked the lock on a side door and crept inside, stepping into a dimly lit corridor lined with heavy steel doors and tightly curtained windows. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and machine oil. Drawing a deep breath, Deacon eased open the nearest door and froze at the sight before him. Luna Nozawa, wide-eyed and terrified, strapped to an examination table, her wrists bound by thick leather cuffs. Above her, a suite of surgical lights hovered like ominous moons, and along the walls, rows of monitors displayed scans and schematics that made Deacon's blood run cold. As he edged forward, Luna's tears caught the light, her lips trembling as she whispered, "You shouldn't be here." Instruments gleamed on a stainless steel tray. Scalpels, syringes, vials filled with strange, luminescent fluids, and in the shadows beyond the monitors, Deacon glimpsed a figure hunched over a console, fingers dancing across a keyboard. He recognized the outline instantly. Dr. Grace Buckingham, resplendent even in surgical scrubs, her expression unreadable as she typed in commands to a machine that hummed with the promise of metamorphosis. A high-pitched whir sounded as the lights flickered to life, illuminating Luna's gaunt face and the intricate network of wires attached to her temples. Deacon's heart clenched when he realized the depths of their conspiracy. This was not simply an act of revenge or a rescue gone awry, but a perverse experiment in identity replacement. Their plan was grotesquely clear: to sculpt Luna into a new Sheila, to overwrite Luna's mind and features with the very essence of his wife, granting Sheila a second lease on life free from legal pursuit. Genetic enhancers, neural rewiring, surgical reconstruction, every tool of modern science had been assembled here to birth a perfect clone, a carbon copy animated by Luna's fractured psyche now reprogrammed to assume Sheila's place. Horror and rage surged through Deacon as he stumbled backward, the metallic scent of fear choking him. Grace's eyes met his over the glow of the console, and for a fraction of a second, he saw admiration in them, a scientist intoxicated by the power to play God, unmoved by the ethical abyss beneath her feet. Luna let out a muffled sob when she saw Deacon, clutching at her restraints as if she could will herself free. In that instant, the room exploded into chaos. Alarms blared, red lights flashed, and uniformed guards poured in from hidden alcoves, their tasers drawn. Deacon fought his way clear, his urgency magnified by the knowledge that every second counted for Luna, for Sheila, for the shattered lineage of the Carter, Sharp clan. He hauled Luna from the table, dragging her through narrow corridors as the compound erupted around him, surgical screams mingling with the pounding of helicopter rotors overhead. Somewhere behind him, machines whirred and crackled as they struggled to complete the final stage of Luna's transformation. Deacon knew he could not allow Sheila's identity, or what was left of Luna's humanity, to be lost in this abomination. With one final burst of adrenaline, he smashed through an exit door, Luna sobbing in his arms as the world of scientific monstrosity he left behind receded into darkness. The dawn was breaking over Los Angeles as he stumbled onto the street, determined that he would expose this grotesque conspiracy to the world, to rescue Luna's soul and to end once and for all the terrifying new chapter that threatened to consume the Carter. Sharp legacy forever. Deacon's boots pounded the pavement as he carried Luna from the clandestine compound into the uncertain safety of pre-dawn Los Angeles streets. Adrenaline coursed through him, every muscle straining against exhaustion, but his focus remained unshakable. Luna was alive, her mind not yet overwritten by the twisted ambition of Grace Buckingham and her accomplices. Behind him, the compound's alarms still wailed like banshees, but Deacon refused to look back. He had a single path forward. Get Luna to someone who could reverse the neural reprogramming before the chemical agents infused in her bloodstream cemented the Sheila persona for good. He flagged down a passing car, a delivery van with a sympathetic driver who, after a moment's hesitation, agreed to ferry him and Luna to the Finnegan residence. There, Finn's medical bay would offer the fastest route to both stabilizing Luna and extracting the bioengineered serum altering her synaptic patterns. By the time Deacon and Luna staggered through the front door, Finn was already on his knees beside a small examination table in the wing he shared with Lee. The moment he recognized Luna's battered form and the distinctive pattern of electrodes still affixed to her temples, his calm composure snapped into fierce determination. "She's received an advanced neurotropic cocktail," he muttered, fumbling for his kit. "We need to flush her system and rebuild her neural pathways before the cortex rewires itself permanently." As Finn prepared a custom infusion, Lee burst into the room, her face ashen but resolute. Deacon relayed the horror of the compound, the vats of genetic enhancers, the surgical plans to graft Luna's skull into an implant scaffold replicating Sheila's bone structure, the cold calculus of erasing one woman to resurrect another. Lee's eyes flashed with a mixture of grief for the woman she had failed to protect and steely resolve to undo what science had wrought. While Finn administered the detox protocol, an infusion of chelating agents, enzyme modulators, and a carefully titrated cocktail of neurotrophins, Lee downloaded the fragments of data Finn had recovered from the hospital's encrypted backup, determined to trace the conspiracy to its shadowy roots. Luna, her breathing ragged but steady, clutched Deacon's hand, her eyes flickering with confusion as she fought to remember who she was, her lips forming his name as though it were a lifeline back to herself. Meanwhile, across town in the Forrester penthouse, word of Deacon's revelations and Luna's dramatic rescue sparked a maelstrom of reactions. Hope Logan, having watched Carter promise to stand by her in grief, now faced a new crisis. The woman she had forgiven, Luna, was a pawn in an explosive scheme that threatened not only her own reputation, but the fragile business alliance between Spencer Publications and the Forrester empire. Carter convened an emergency meeting with Brooke, Steffi, and Lee via secure video link, his voice taut with urgency as he shared Deacon's account and the fragments of evidence Lee had gleaned from the hospital's database. Brooke, ever the matriarch, urged caution. Any misstep could expose Hope's involvement before the public eye, fueling tabloid flames and undermining the legitimacy of Liam's legacy. Steffi, Torn between her daughter Kelly's need for stability and the imperative to protect the Forrester, Finnegan interests vowed to marshal every legal resource to shield Luna and Deacon from reprisals. Carter, his loyalty to Hope undiminished, promised to leverage Spencer Publications' investigative division to uncover who financed the compound, who provided the surgical schematics, and most importantly, who stood to gain by replacing Sheila with a manufactured doppelganger. Their war room crackled with frantic energy as they planned their next moves. Secure Luna under witness protection, leak fragments of evidence to trusted journalists, and prepare for an inevitable showdown with Grace Buckingham, once heralded as the savior of the Orb but now unmasked as the architect of abomination. But the darkest revelation still lay hidden in the shadows of the Carter, Sharp lineage. As Deacon and Finn worked around the clock to purge Luna's system and restore her neural identity, Grace Buckingham and Bridget Forrester moved closer to activating the final phase of their plan. Genetic samples stolen from Sheila's last medical exam had already been synthesized into a bioidentical template. A surrogate host lay in cryogenic stasis within the compound, waiting for the march of electrodes and scalpels to transfer the Sheila consciousness into a new form. Grace, her surgical gloves stained with ambition, believed she could perfect what nature had wrought imperfectly in Sheila, the seamless integration of physical likeness, behavioral patterns, and memory imprints. Bridget, torn between her duty as surgeon and the horror of the enterprise, hesitated at the brink of complicity, her conscience buckling under the promise of scientific breakthrough and the fear of Grace's retribution should she refuse. Their countdown to the birth of the new Sheila ticked onward even as Luna's cries of recognition grew louder, proof that identity, no matter how nearly erased, fought to reclaim itself. Finn's infusion protocols began to show signs of reversal. Luna's EEG stabilized, her cortisol levels normalized, and fleeting fragments of her own life, her childhood, her dreams flickered through the fog of reprogramming. Every second was precious, for once Grace and Bridget triggered the neural overwrite mechanism, the finality of their procedure would close the door on Luna's reclamation forever. Night deepened over Los Angeles as the two sides raced toward their climactic confrontation. Deacon, his features drawn with exhaustion and resolve, prepared to join Carter and Wyatt in a coordinated assault. Carter would use his corporate muscle to freeze the compound's accounts and cut off its supply chains. Wyatt would expose the shell companies and the executives who had bankrolled the project, and Deacon, with Finn Enley at his side, would storm the facility to rescue the surrogate before the neural transfer commenced. Hope, determined to face her own fears, insisted on accompanying Deacon, her presence a reminder of what they fought to protect, the integrity of identity, the sanctity of memory, and the freedom to choose one's own destiny. As dawn broke, the Carter, Sharp, Spencer, Finnegan alliance coalesced into a single force, hearts united by the knowledge that science's greatest gift, healing, could be perverted into something monstrous if wielded without conscience. And in the sterile gloom of the compound's central lab, Grace Buckingham hovered over her console, unaware of the storm gathering at her doors. She believed herself untouchable, her brilliance a shield against moral condemnation. But she had underestimated the power of love, loyalty, and the unbreakable bonds that tether the human soul to its true self. As Deacon raised his hand to knock on the reinforced door, Luna's whispered plea, "Don't let them take me again," echoed through the hall, a haunting testament to the courage that would ignite the final act of this dark saga and determine the fate of the Carter Sharp legacy once and for all.